On this episode of the Motorsport Recently Show.
My first thought is this is the ugliest thing I've ever laid eyes on.
I love the use of the sort of home renovators game show cliche of it just doesn't wow me.
It looks dark. It looks like the dark horse of the grid. They look like the bad guys.
100% no notes.
Hello everybody, my name is Jack McKenzie, and joining me on the mic as usual is the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary. And for the first time ever on what you are listening to, the Motorsport Recently Show, in the rebooted version that is, we actually have a guest. So the fourth presenter on this week's episode of the show is LastLapLucy. Lucy, welcome along.
Hi, I'm so excited. I did not realise I was the first ever guest. That's so fun.
Well, you're the first ever guest on the newly rebooted version of the show, because we had a couple of guests on the old version of the show that we did about 6 years ago. But you're the first guest on the new version.
A win is a win. I'll take it. I'm honoured. Thank you guys for having me.
P1, numero uno.
We'll talk a little about what you do in just a second. But Caitlin and Chris, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay, thanks. I had a long nap. I don't know how well I'm going to sleep tonight. I test drove a Citroen C1 earlier. It was rubbish. There were loads of things wrong with it. I knew it was going to be a bad car when I shut the door and the wing mirror fell off. That is a genuine thing that happened. So, needless to say, I didn't go home with that car.
Well, we've been waiting for comments on that actually, because a few weeks ago we put out a call out in a previous episode to get listeners to write in on suggestions for Caitlin's new car, and that is still very much open. Chris, what have you got to say?
You see, first of all, I've got a perfect idea. Get the Citroen C1, strip it all out, slap a roll cage in it, enter the 24 hours, the C1 24 hours.
Well, it also sounded like it had a problem with the muffler or the catalytic converter or something, so...
You don't need a muffler when you're racing.
It would require a bit more work than that. Also, the handbrake came up to, vertical. That thing was loose as heck.
Oh my God, it's a rally-style handbrake.
Absolutely. This is not important whatsoever, but that's the story of me and my first test drive of a potential new car, which turned out to be rubbish.
Well, this is certainly an introduction to Lucy on this show. We talk about motorsport and basically whatever else comes to mind. Lucy, why don't you tell us a little bit about what about you do on YouTube and social media, and plug your stuff before we get into the subject of today's episode?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi everyone, I'm LastLapLucy. Some of you may know me, most of you probably will not. I'm a motorsport content creator, and I also work for Racing Pride. If you didn't know Racing Pride, they're an organisation that champions LGBTQ plus inclusion in motorsport and associated industries, and my job with them is to look after the member community that the organisation has. So yeah, we have a Discord server, and I make sure that all our members feel really safe, comfortable and welcome at events. And when I'm not doing that, or working at the supermarket, which is my other job, I am a content creator. So I make videos on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I'm posting all the time, literally everywhere I can think of. I have my own Discord server, and I honestly just love to yap about motorsport, especially Formula 1 and Formula E. Those are my two favourites. And yeah, it really just came from back in lockdown. My parents were fed up of me yapping, and I needed someone to yap to, and that's how my social media channels were formed, and it's just, I'm still yapping to this day, so...
We stand a yapper, we do.
Exactly, for the lappers and the yappers.
We are here, of course, to talk about Formula 1. Caitlin will be very happy about this, because Chris and I have made Caitlin sit through weeks upon weeks of sports car racing content, and now she gets to talk about her specialist subject, and we are going to be talking about the F1 75 event. We're going to have some fun today, and we're also going to rank every single livery that was unveiled at that event. So this event, of course, happened at the O2 in London, and it's the first time that all 10 teams were brought together for their livery reveal at the same time. So normally what happens is every livery gets unveiled individually, and now they were all unveiled together. I don't think there's ever been another time in the sport's history where that has been the case. Lucy was actually there, though. So Lucy, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you, because it was a little bit different to what the internet knows about that event.
Absolutely. So I actually was at a side event almost at the O2. So while I went down to London and had a lot of similar experiences to a lot of people that went, I didn't actually have tickets to the show itself. And I instead went to a watch party at the O2 hosted by Lego, which was a really fantastic experience. What do you want me to say about it?
Well, I mean, a lot of us sort of saw the broadcast on YouTube of the stage and the arena, but what were some of the events sort of like surrounding that event? So what was the event that you went to actually like? What was the kind of setup? What was the vibe? What did you experience there?
Yeah, so at the O2 they had like loads of different venues besides the main one. I was in I think it was like Toka Lounge or Toka Lounge, I don't know how it was said, but Lego had set up in there. There were loads of Lego F1 cars. There was a big wall to take pictures on. You could build Lego stuff and just look at all the new Lego In fact, for those that are looking, I have my Lego kit here.
Wow.
So they gave us all a little goodie bag as well, which was wonderful. Shout out to Lego. And yeah, it was just a really nice way to meet fellow F1 fans. I think it was kind of an influencers event because I saw some people there that had been on Love Island. And I'll be so honest, I did not realise it was an influencers event because I came wearing a hoodie. I thought there'd be kids there. I was expecting like a family event. There were not kids there. There was alcohol. But, you know, it was fine. I still had a lot of fun and I met some Racing Pride members there as well. And I also met Crofty. So I'm just chilling out at my table enjoying the free food. And Crofty just walks past. And my good friend Dave Nelson actually spotted Crofty. And he was like, that's Crofty. And I just looked up and I was like, that is Crofty. So we both get up and we go over to Crofty. And we're like, so it was really nice to see him again. For those that do follow me on YouTube and so on, you'll know that I interviewed him at the start of last year, and he did actually remember me from that interview, which was really, really exciting. But yeah, so it was nice, and then we just sat down, they had pulled down this projector, and we watched it on a big screen together. Everyone was still clapping in the room and stuff, and it was really pleasant, because what I didn't want to do with F175 was sit alone in a room watching it. I wanted someone to... It felt like a activity best shared, so I'm glad that I was able to be at a watch party and soak up a lot of the vibe on the day. I don't know if you guys saw the Aston Martin takeover of I think it was North Greenwich Tube Station?
Yes, I saw your pictures of that. You got like Lance Stroll cupcakes and all that.
Yeah. So I got off the tube and the whole station was Aston Martin green. So the whole thing was just absolutely decked out in Aston Martin advertisements, posters, everything. There were like videos. Even the ticket barriers had Fernando and Lance's faces on it. It was so fun. Came out of the station up to the top. People wearing Aston Martin race suits. There's a cupcake stand and they're handing out green Aston Martin cupcakes that say Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso on them. I took a Lance Stroll one, of course, because that's my boy. And there was also a whole Aston Martin car, an F1 car, just on display. And they had a little photo booth as well where you could take a photo of yourself and they'd like edit Fernando Alonso in. So it was kind of crazy and kind of fun. It was just a really cool way to feel like I was part of the show that I wasn't going to. It was really cool to just be there and be surrounded by F1 fans and just see people wearing their merch and just getting really excited. There was a big wall with a poster of every F1 driver on it and people were taking pics with their favourite drivers. So I was there with Alex Albon and Ollie Behrman. It was so fun. Yeah, it was really fun. Like the atmosphere was just incredible.
That sounds fantastic, actually, and it's fantastic to hear about some of the other events that we might not have seen on the main broadcast as well. I do want to turn our attention to that main broadcast, of course. Obviously, it sounds like it was sort of a very pomp and circumstance type of event, and some people love that, and then some people probably also didn't really love that as well. What did you guys think of the event? What did you sort of think about the sort of show and the spectacle that Formula One put on? Was it too much? Was it too little? What did you guys think of that? Caitlin, do you want to start us off on that?
So I agree that it was an event best shared. I watched it with my lovely partner, and I thought that it was quite fun. In a few places, it was a little bit. I mean, I hate the word cringe, but like, it was a bit over the top. It was a bit like, speed. I am speed, and that kind of thing. But like, we have to admit it's a historic event. That's never happened before, all of the teams getting together in one place. The only time you ever see that is at a racetrack. So having that on stage at the O2 in front of thousands of people in person, millions of people worldwide, I have to commend Formula One for doing that. I wasn't expecting... I think one thing I wasn't expecting was kind of the vibe of the presenter. They got in comedian Jack Whitehall for it, and he kind of stole the show a little bit. Asked the hard questions that people probably weren't expecting him to ask. Got Gordon Ramsay to talk about the swearing ban. Got George and Max to talk about their drama, or at least attempted to. Made some jokes at the expense of drivers. It reminded me of watching celebrity roasts at like the BAFTAs or whatever. Honestly, pretty fun. I was quite a big fan of how they did that. But yeah, the actual show itself, it was always going to be a little bit over the top. It was always going to be a little bit pomp. But it looked like a vibe, and I'm a little bit disappointed I didn't really try to get tickets.
Oh, yeah. Chris, your T-shirt would probably suggest that you're still stuck in 1997, but how much of the event did you see, and what did you think of it, if you did see any of it?
Well, I'm going to quote Max Verstappen's soundbite. It was absolutely fantastic.
Well, I think surely it would be simply lovely.
Simply lovely.
Simply lovely. So did you watch the event on YouTube, or did you not find a VHS tape? I mean, you're wearing a T-shirt from an old Formula One team from 1997.
I also have one from 1990, but I also have a Coloni shirt.
That is retro.
Internet slowly catching up?
Lucy, what did you think about the main event itself?
To be honest, I want to just add something, a kind of slightly off topic from the main event.
Sure.
One thing that I really liked about the F175 kind of package as a whole, like the main event and all the stuff around it, it made F1 a lot more accessible to the general public than it ever really has been. I think the British Grand Prix is really your only way to properly engage with F1 in the UK. And tickets are really expensive if you're coming from abroad, that travel, flights, accommodation, it's a lot. This event in London, I went down for the day, I just travelled in for one day, left in the evening. I was able to see so much without having to buy a ticket. There were loads of pubs and bars showing the event. It was really good on that front, and it's a shame there aren't more free events and activations going on that people can just consistently get involved with, because it was really nice to see a lot of people who'd never really had a taste of F1 in person before getting that experience for the first time.
That's really important, actually. I think also the fact that it was made available for live stream on YouTube is a very accessible way to see it. I think that was fantastic as well.
Yeah.
It could so easily have been hidden behind a paywall like everyone else in F1.
Yeah.
So, props to F1 for making it free to view online.
Yeah. So the event itself was good. If they were to do, because we obviously I don't think anything's been confirmed about a similar event happening next year for the livery reveal, or if this is just going to be a one-off thing. But if they were to do it again next year, what would you guys do differently, and what would you keep the same? If it was up to you, how would you guys handle this event?
So it's supposed to be like a one-off thing for Formula One's 75th anniversary. I think they'll probably end up doing something similar but smaller in the future, because obviously this was a major success. It did make F1 more accessible, and it also made them a lot of money, which I think is the most important thing. So I think they will do some sort of event next year, probably not of the same scale, and I don't know if they'll get all of the teams to agree to reveal all of their cars in one place again. But yeah, I think one thing that I would like to see is kind of a bit more substance. To explain what I mean by that, I feel like it was obviously marketed as a livery reveal, but I feel like they kind of made it seem on the day as if they were showing off the actual cars themselves. And I know that was never really the intention, but like, if I'm going to go to an event like that, I don't really just want to look at the cars and be like, ooh, shiny. You know, I want there to be something for the more committed F1 fans as well. So I would like to see something to do with technical innovations, or I would like to hear about the upcoming 2026 regulations or whatever. You know, I'd like to see something with a little bit more substance.
It had, it reminds me a lot of the Oscars, where it's basically like 4 hours of filler for 5 minutes of actual content.
I have to agree with you. There was a lot of filler, and to be honest,
call me old-fashioned, but some of the musical acts I had never actually heard of.
That's true. Some of the musical acts were a bit meh.
I did like the lady that Aston Martin brought out. She was
she was brilliant. Yeah, no,
also,
that was amazing.
Also, I have a question for Lucy. What did the cupcakes taste like?
They were delicious. They were fantastic. That's the real question. These are the hard-hitting journalistic questions we need to be having on this show.
Motorsport Recently.
Such a little cupcake with such a big punch, you know? It was fantastic, and I want one every day.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Aston Martin.
Motorsport Recently. A pillar of motorsport journalism since
So Chris
2025.
Whitfield has talked about a livery from 1997 and the taste of cupcakes. Fantastic.
I have a picture of the cupcake. Let me try and hold it up.
Oh, look at that.
You can kind of see
that's
that.
properly done, yeah.
Yeah, so for those who can't see right now, it's basically a cute little cupcake with a little blob of icing and then this big circular smacked onto the middle that says Lance Stroll.
Now, if Aston Martin go over their catering budget this year, I'd understand that based on what I've just seen there.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Does that affect the cost cap?
With me just eating it.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, my goodness.
The content.
Everybody who's watching on the YouTube feed or the video feed on Spotify will, of course, have been able to see that. I do agree with Caitlin about the substance comment. So I think I've been playing with the idea in the last couple of days that if they were to do this next year, what they could do is, instead of doing a live event that people could necessarily... It probably wouldn't be as much of a live event where a load of people and a load of the general public are in attendance. I feel like they should still do a YouTube stream, but I was thinking what they could possibly do is they could make it almost a part of testing. So then they release... So they do the livery reveal, and then very shortly afterwards, either the day after or even the day of, possibly, they roll out for testing, so you get so much interest. So not only is there the livery reveal and the pomp and circumstance and all that sort of stuff, but then you get to see some on-track action as well. So I think that might possibly be the way to go moving forward with that one.
I have a complete opposite idea, to be honest. I'm almost thinking, imagine there was like a almost Formula One convention, and you've got, maybe they hire out the XL or something, they've got a big venue, and each of the teams has its own stand. They've got their car on display. Maybe one by one they could take the covers off the cars as a televised show. Fans get let in. Everyone can mill around, look at the cars, get up close to them in their own space, in their own time. They can go see which cars they want. And then maybe one team at a time, the drivers come out onto a main stage where the fans can also go and stand. And there can be like a talk panel where, you know, maybe kind of similar to what's done at the Autosport show with like maybe someone like Crofty presenting and maybe drivers say a few bits, then maybe even pass down to the fans for a few questions. I just think that would be a really fun and unique thing that I've never really seen before in any sport.
Yeah,
I would go to an F1 convention for sure.
Me too.
Yeah, F1, like the thing is, scrutineering day at Le Mans has it 100% right. Like, where basically you see the cars on display in the city, like in a city center. You don't even need to be like at a stadium or something. You could just like close off a bit of a stretch of road, like where the drivers are right at you, where you're right in front of the cars and the drivers. Have it in like a city center somewhere, and basically it would be interactive with the fans, like yeah, like it reminds me, that idea kind of reminds me of Le Mans, the scrutineering day at Le Mans.
I hadn't thought of that.
That actually, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea, actually. So I think we've generated two quite very good ideas for Formula One. If Stefano Domenicali is watching or tuning into the Motorsport Recently show, first of all, hello. Secondly, there's our ideas. If we can have some money for those, that'd be fantastic as well.
I want 10% of the profit.
Yes.
I'll take 25.
25, I suppose it's a quarter, so it makes sense. Okay, let's actually get into our livery rankings. We're going to go from, in the same way that they did at the actual show, we're going to go from the back of the Constructors' Championship to the front. So, of course, we start with Sauber Ferrari. We'll go through everybody's answers, and you're going to give a score out of 10 and justify your choice, and hopefully we'll get a bit of a score at the end, and then we'll actually be able to rank the liveries worst to best or best to worst. So who would like to start us off with Sauber?
I think Lucy should start since she was there.
Me? Okay. Okay, well, first of all, I'm gonna just admit I'm a little bit biased because this team did recently invite me to the Autosport Awards with them. So I am gonna have to say some pretty nice things here. But honestly, even if not for that, I would absolutely be singing this car's praises. It's kind of gorgeous. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like recently we had a phase in F1 where all the cars were very black, very carbon fiber, and we still see that black on this, but we also see this bright neon green, and I think the best thing in racing is when you've got these bright coloured cars, you can see who's which car, which teammate is whose. You're never going, is that the this or the that? Like, you know exactly, that is Sauber, that is whatever their full team name is, that is them. Yeah, I think it's a really cool concept with this neon green fading into the black. It still gets them the opportunity to have that carbon fiber go in for the weight reduction, but it's still at the same time really striking, really bold, and it stands out from the crowd. So I'm personally going to give that a very, very solid 8 out of 10. It's simple but effective, and it does the job.
Starting with an 8 out of 10 from Lucy. Caitlin, should we throw to you?
Okay. So, when it was initially released, I was very impressed for the same reasons that Lucy says. I like the fading from front to back. I like the fact that we're seeing less carbon fiber. Even the black bits that we saw, they didn't look like bare carbon. They looked like it was a more glossy paint. So, from how it looks, I really like that. The trouble is, and I hate to be a downer, when we saw it on track at pre-season testing, I didn't think it looked as good. I think it looks a little bit darker for some weird reason. And, you know, with Sauber, their whole thing is that they stand out. They're supposed to be, you know, eye-catching and almost lurid in a way. At least that's what they were last year. This year, it's a little bit more underwhelming, and I don't know if that's just under the lights at Bahrain or whatever. But yeah, I think the car looks better in renders than it does in real life. So for that reason, I think I will start with a 5.
Caitlin starts with a 5. Valid reasoning for that one as well. Chris, what do you think?
Looking at it now, it actually kind of reminds me. I first of all, I love the gradients. As Lucy pointed out, the gradients between the green, the kick green, and the black of the bodywork at the rear of the car. I think this actually might look much better under lights that, like, to Caitlin's point, I think it looks better in the dark than it does in the light. Overall, I'm gonna rank it about a. This is tough. About a 7.5.
You're allowed decimal place. 7.5.
About 7.5.
7.5.
Yeah.
I think. Do you know what? I think I actually have to agree with Chris's score, and the reason I say that is because Sauber is of course in a bit of a transitional phase between when they were Alfa Romeo and when they are going to be Audi. And I think it's always been a little bit difficult to pin what Sauber's colours actually are. There's been a few years where it's sort of been grey and white and stuff. Then there was sort of the few years where they had the sort of, I think it was sort of blue and yellow when Felipe Nasr was driving for the team alongside Marcus Ericsson as well. But aside from that, Sauber have always been a sort of a factory team for other car manufacturers. They've, of course, been with BMW, they've been with Alfa Romeo, and they're going to be... obviously, they've also done a bit of work with Mercedes. I'm sure Chris can sing the praises of them in sports cars.
I was just actually about to say, don't forget Mercedes, and also they were the Ford V10 factory team after... they were the Ford factory team for... a couple of seasons
with Ilmor, yeah.
Yeah, in
wait, Ilmor was Mercedes.
Mercedes, yeah. I was talking about, like, I think it was 1996. They actually were the only ones running Ford V10s before Stewart came in.
I actually didn't know that. That's a new piece of information that I did not know. So there you go. We've learned something. So that, with the combined scores, that brings Sauber to a total score of 28 out of 40 to start off the ranking.
Yay.
Now we're going to be moving on to Atlassian Williams Mercedes. Who wants to start us off with this one?
Let's do the same. Oh, Chris is going. Go on, Chris.
Well, to be honest, it's kind of bland. It's kind of a bland livery. Like, I do applaud the use of gradients, though. Like, I do like the gradients, and I like the fact that they're keeping the copper top, on top of the Duracell copper top on the airbox. But, yeah, it just, unfortunately, it just doesn't wow me as much as it really should, and, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to rank this a 3.
A 3 out of 10. That's, yeah, wow. And I love the use of the sort of home renovators game show expression or cliche of it just doesn't wow me. I think that's fantastic. Okay, starting off with a very harsh 3. Who wants to go next?
Caitlin?
Okay. I'm going to be contradictory again, just like I was with Lucy on the last one. So they have a similar kind of gradient, but it's dark to light, and I actually think that works really, really well. I quite like the Atlassian blue on the back. I like the way that it's kind of glossy at the front and then matte at the back. Obviously, the Duracell battery on the roll hoop is an absolute masterpiece of branding that, yeah, I know we've seen it for a couple of years now, but we still can't understate how clever that is. I think that the Williams was one of my pleasant surprises of the show. And also one of the pleasant surprises of pre-season testing so far as well. It looks to be a bit of a... We'll get to that, but yeah, it's looking strong. I am going to give the Williams an 8.5 out of 10, and I am quite a fan of how this car looks.
8.5 out of
typing
10
furiously.
for Caitlin. A bit of typing going on in the background.
Yeah, I had to get some reference pictures up from the point I'm about to make.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it.
Ooh.
Sorry. I think people should know Williams is one of my favourite teams. My favourite driver, Alex Albon. I'm kind of on par with Ollie Behrman now, but that's a side note. I've supported Williams for a while because of Albon, and I pay a lot of attention to what they're doing with their branding and stuff, and I just don't like the direction that Williams are going with their branding. I feel like every year the caps are getting a little bit more ugly, and I don't like the new Albon logo as well, but that's a complete side note. And basically, the thing I don't like about this livery is it's bland, it's boring, and it doesn't give Williams. This could be any team. Like, if you just changed the colours up, this could be Ferrari's livery, if it was red. If you made it green, that's Steak's livery. If you made it black, that's Mercedes livery. It's nothing special, it's nothing unique.
If my grandmother had wheels, she'd have been a bike.
Yeah, true, but, if there's another blue team on the grid, how are you going to tell them apart? It's a good thing that Alpine have gone for this pink thing, and if they hadn't done that, they'd look really similar. And yeah, so basically you may have heard of a furious typing, and that's because I just wanted to check that I was going to say the right thing here. But the old classic Williams liveries are so iconic. They've got, especially the blue and white. Those, to me, that's Williams. That's classic Williams.
The Rothmans livery or the camel one?
I'm thinking more the Rothmans, but camel, similar vibe. Like, kind of almost a mixture of the two would be perfect. I would love to see Williams almost return to that. And, if they'd gone for that gradient on the top, but then on the bottom half have it be a white strip and kind of honour their heritage, I think that would be a really fantastic thing for Williams to do. Like, they have such a rich history in the team, and they've chosen to just go boring. They've gone bland. They've gone modern F1 team, when actually they are the team with one of the most rich histories in motorsport, and they should capitalise on that, because that is who they are. That is their image. That is their biggest selling point of the team.
At the very least, put in the Sonic legs on the put in like Sonic's legs on the cockpit surround near the barge board, like the '93 Williams was.
You're getting a bit too niche for me, but I agree. Whatever that means, yes. And that comes to my my score. I do love the Duracell battery. Again, we have seen it, but I don't want to downgrade it for that. But ultimately, it is just branding, and it's kind of cutesy, but it doesn't stand out. It's so hard to give this a score, but we're allowed decimals.
Yeah.
So
decimals
I'm
are
gonna,
allowed.
yeah. You didn't say what decimals are allowed, so I'm gonna give this score pi out of 10.
Oh my god.
Wow.
What?
So
Hang
Jack,
on.
you now have to write out the entire, every decimal of pi.
I'm not even sure if this is going to work in the calculator. I put the pi symbol. I think that's the pi symbol. Oh gosh.
Looks
You're
like
asking
a funny
the
little
wrong.
table.
You're asking the wrong person to do maths-related things. I'm not good enough at maths.
My gut told me to give it a 3, but the reaction to Chris giving a 3 was that it was super harsh and nasty, and I don't want to be the mean judge,
Right.
I love that.
Well, I couldn't give it a 4, and a 3.5 feels too generous. So I was like, we're
I'm
gonna
sitting
give it
right here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So we're gonna give it just above 3.
A pi.
Like a
I think that's the pi symbol I put in.
4, 1, 5, 9, so on.
I can only give you 3.1. Yeah, 3.14.
I can do
sorry.
50 digits, but we're not going to have
goodness
time
me.
for that. We
Wow.
will be here all night.
Right. Okay. That's do you know, I was originally going to give this livery an 8, but Lucy's actually made such a convincing point, I think I'm going to adjust my score a little bit. I actually really like this livery. I really love, obviously, the gradient. I think the dark blue at the front and the sort of lighter blue at the back looks fantastic. love a Golf livery. Well, I love a car with a Golf logo on it. I think that's always very, very cool. Duracell batteries, fantastic. I think to make this a little bit more Williams, I think this could have stood to have a little bit more white included in the livery to do sort of a more blue and white type deal. I feel like that would have been sort of more Williams. So on that basis, I'm going to give it a 7.7 out of 10, which brings our final score for Williams to a... I'm going to round this up. It's going to be 22.34 out of 40. So,
ouch.
Should we round it up to a 23 for Alex Albon? Should we do that?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, what the hell? It's yeah.
No, 22.34. That's the number. We're not going over. We're not giving people biases because of the driver they are that improves the state livery. Right, okay, now moving on to the most complicated name on the grid. They have actually made their entire livery about the fact that nobody knows what this team is called, and that is, of course, V-Carb. That revealed that, well, yeah, so V-Carb, that was Toro Rosso at one point, and it became AlphaTauri. It's the Red Bull Junior team, of course, and we're going to rank that livery now. I am actually happy to start us off with this one as well. So, I think this looks really, really good. I sort of like the fact that it kind of looks like every Red Bull concept livery that people put out on social media. I think this looks really, really good. There's stuff happening with this livery, but it's not too busy. It's not too messy. I think this looks really, really good. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 to start us off with V-Carb. Who wants to go next with this one?
Oh, I'll go.
Okay.
Yeah,
go,
Chris, you go for it.
You know, it while it looks good, when it comes to Red Bull liveries, it actually reminds me of a film negative. Between, like, because everything is, of course, reversed. Having said that, I like it. I like that film negative of the Red Bull liveries. So I'm going to give it a 6.
6 out of 10. I just want to add something also to my point very quickly. This car actually... Do you remember when Red Bull did the space jump? And the guy was, of course, wearing his white astronaut suit, and he had the Red Bull logos on the side. It sort of reminds me of that, and I think it's very, very cool. I also like the little blue decals at the back of the livery as well, but I've already had my go. Caitlin or Lucy, who wants to take this one? And if nobody takes one, I'll be like your school teacher and pick somebody. Thank you very much, Lucy, for volunteering.
Putting my hand up. I don't think Caitlin's gone last yet, and I went last time. Well, almost last, but anyway.
Well, you're LastLapLucy.
Exactly, you're right. What am I doing? No. Yeah, I mean, my first thought is this is the ugliest thing I've ever laid eyes on.
Really?
And my second thought
Whoa.
No. My second thought is, I love it. It's perfect. Like, it's so... I don't know how to explain it. It shouldn't work, but it does. Like, what do you mean you've put white, but then also some black, and you've stuck the Red Bull thing on the back and the front, and then you've plastered it with Hugo, Cash App, Visa logos that don't even have, like, all the colours are just random, and they've put these cute little, you called them decals, that was a very cute and professional word to use, so I'll call them the decals as well. You've got these bull decals coming out of the back, like shooting out the back. It sounds like a 5-year-old made it. And you know what? They've done a great job. They've done, I don't know, I shouldn't like it, but I do. It's like, I don't know. It's so silly. It's so fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And you know what? I think that's the V-Carb spirit, you know? Like, it's doing something a bit different. It's a bit quirky. It's the baby version of something. It's a little bit more, like, colourful, creative, and just silly. And, yeah, I honestly really like it. So I'm going to hit it with a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10?
Yeah.
Caitlin?
Wow.
That's a good score for the Minardi Bull.
The Minardi Bull Rosso, yes.
This is why I thought you'd be excellent for this show, Lucy, because you bring out the quotes, the takes that I did not expect to be hearing today. But yeah, So a lot of people have pointed out that this car looks a lot like a Red Bull one-off livery that they ran a few years ago in Suzuka in Turkey, and it does. It kind of feels like, you know, they looked at that livery and they were like, well, people like that. Let's copy it. And you know what? Why not? But you see, it reminds me more of the Wings of Life livery that David Coulthard ran in his final Grand Prix, Brazil 2008.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else has been watching F1 for long enough to remember that, but he ran a bright white Red Bull, which, to be honest, is also the last time that two cars on the same team ran significantly different liveries. Fun fact about that. Um, I really like it. I'm not gonna lie. I think that it's it's unique. It just, the reason it looks like a concept livery that someone would come up with, Jack, is because it looks good. That's the thing. You know, we're so used to seeing overly uh, overly safe liveries or overly carbon fiber liveries or whatever. And I do hope that we don't end up seeing the car gradually get darker and darker as the season goes along, but that might end up happening. Um, for what it is, I think it really, really stands out, and I've seen it on track a few times in pre-season testing, and I've gone, is that a Red Bull? Oh, it's the V-Carb, okay. Um, the only thing I will say is, was it Ted Kravitz? Ted Kravitz pointed out something quite that I quite agreed with for once in pre-season testing, which is they. So obviously there used to be Toro Rosso, which of course is Italian for Red Bull, which makes sense because they're the Italian team owned by Red Bull. They decided to, boost the clothing brand for a few years and go to AlphaTauri, but then when they decided they were done with that, they were like, why not go back to Toro Rosso? You're still the Italian team owned by Red Bull. Like, what does Visa Cash App RB even mean? Like, you could even be Cash App Toro Rosso. Like, what's the problem with that?
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Visa Cash App Toro Rosso.
Works.
Yeah. That's all completely irrelevant because we're here to judge the livery itself, and I'm going to be very generous and give a 9.
A 9, that's the highest score I think we've had so far, and that brings it to a score of 29 out of 40, which is the most that we've had so far. Okay, moving on to Haas, and I'm going to make this very easy. This livery is typically Haas, but in fairness, I didn't think that the Haas livery was ever really that good in the first place, so I'm giving this one a 6.5 out of 10. Done.
Yeah.
Quick and easy. Very good.
Pretty straightforward. I'll hop in and add a bit more. I think, they showed us in the F175 launch, they did this whole thing about how they are America. Yeah, they really went like very patriotic, like trying to market themselves as the like all-American team, and they went to the Empire State Building to do some marketing. Like, they're really trying to push that they're the Americans of F1. And their livery doesn't reflect that at all. I think Haas is the kind of scrappy team of the grid. I think they're a team that can very much do whatever they want. They can take a few risks, make a few gambles. How bad can it get for their PR? They've already had PR disasters. If they have an ugly livery, or they take a swing and it misses, whatever. It's fine. And they've just played it so safe, and it's disappointing because that's the thing. The American way is to be big and to be bold, and they've made the car that's going to just blend into the background more than possibly any other team. If you'd asked me to draw each of the liveries, the Haas one's the only one I could have struggled with. I actually had to go and find another picture of a Haas because I couldn't remember what it looked like on the sides. Yeah. I would have loved to see maybe some stars and stripes incorporated somehow. I think that would have really elevated the livery and made it a bit more special and unique, especially, with this new lineup they've got, like really have a bold new start with their identity as a team. But no, they've played it safe. It's a bit disappointing, so I'm going to hit them with a 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. Chris, why don't you go next?
Not the worst Haas livery I've seen. that dishonor goes to the Mazepin special.
Yeah.
The Mazepin cruiser.
I think we can all agree on that, Chris.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think it looked
You can-
worse before or after they removed the oil sponsorship from that particular year's livery? Just to digress very quickly.
It doesn't actually look as bad. You can definitely see the influence that Toyota Gazoo Racing and their partnership has on it. But yeah, it's just a make up the numbers livery. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Lucy. 4 out of 10 for me.
4 out of 10 from Chris Whitfield and Caitlin. Round us off for Haas.
Has anyone else noticed it has a really long nose? Now, I don't know whether the livery makes it look like that. Because admittedly, the Haas logo and then the black section kind of ends quite early. But I've noticed that on track as well, and I'm starting to think maybe it does just have a really long nose compared to some of the other cars, and the livery just accentuates that. I just feel like it's a little bit disproportional at the front. Which is a shame, because those colours, the whole red, white and black, it's a tried and tested technique. There was one time where pretty much every car in the world's World Endurance Championship was red, white and black, because it looks good. It looks like racing colours, and you can't really go that wrong with it. The colours are great. I like the colours, and I like the black logo on the side, but I just feel like the shapes are a little bit off. It's a little bit janky.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with whoever said 4 and say 4.
So
Yeah,
both of us.
That was almost all of us.
So that is a very low score. I've just seen that come across. If I got this mark at school, I'd be very disappointed. That's an 18 point, or got that mark at university, I would have been very disappointed as well. That's an 18.5 out of 40. So that is not a pass mark.
Was it just me who noticed the long nose? Am I like?
Well, now that you
No,
mention it,
I actually noticed it too. Once you squint.
and when you actually look at the side of it, there's actually a white strip that sort of forms a brow type shape going down the side of it. But again, it doesn't really seem to line up. So yeah, I think that's an understandable score. 18.5 for Haas. Moving on to what I think is a better livery, and I'm happy to start us off with this one again, because I think this one is fantastic. This is, of course, the Alpine livery. Alpine, of course, have sort of built up... Alpine have been around for a long time. They, of course, had presence in rallying before they came into Formula One. But I think they've really used Formula One in the last few years to build up a sort of brand reputation. And I think that they have really played to their unique style with this year's livery. I love what they've done with the metallic blue. I think the integration of the pink BWT logos is better than it ever has been before. This is a fantastic looking livery. I love the sort of metallic elements. I love the integration of the colors. Blue and pink doesn't really look like it should work, but here it does. I think this is probably the best Alpine livery since the Renault team was rebranded to Renault's performance brand. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. Chris.
Go on, Chris.
In a word, banger. 100% no notes.
10 out of 10.
10 out of
First
10.
the show. Wow, fantastic.
And and I'll explain why. The pink and blue just pop together. It's honestly like they gave effort into this, and like I admit, like I like Alpine. I liked the bare carbon Alpine that they had. It's just this one just works on so many levels. It's just I hope this is the full season livery, because I know they've been doing the BWT liveries for the first couple of Middle Eastern races, but over the past couple of years. But if this is the full season livery, then yeah, that it's it's a banger. It's a banger. I love it.
Fantastic. Caitlin, you've been going last a few times. I'm going to throw you forward first. What are you giving this livery?
Yeah, I'm glad you guys agree. I personally think this is the best incorporation of the BWT pink that we've ever had. I think in the past it's looked a little bit janky, kind of. I mean, it's not the best color for a Formula One car. I got nothing wrong with pink. It's just a specific shade of pink that's kind of ruined a couple of cars over the years, and I think this year they've gone. I think it's a slightly different shade of pink actually. Looking at the branding, I think BWT have maybe slightly stepped aside and gone, okay, we can give you a slightly better shade. It looks more like a hot pink. But yeah, I think that the way they've incorporated it, the way that it looks seamless rather than kind of forced, yeah, it's beautifully done, and I would agree that it's the best looking Alpine that we've had since Alpine returned to Formula One. The actual livery reveal was interesting. It took them ages to actually reveal the car. I was just there like, show us the Alpine. Where is it? Ah!
Did it get stuck under the car cover again?
Oh, it just took them so long. But anyway, no, it looks good. I'm going to say 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Yep. I quite like the Alpine reveal, actually. I sort of thought the DJ was going off with that one. I've seen Lucy in the corner of my eye on Riverside in the last few minutes. And I get the feeling that Lucy is about to sort of drop a controversial opinion, and I could be wrong.
Don't you spoil it, Lucy.
Lucy, what do you think it is?
I'm sorry for what I'm about to do. There's going to be a disclaimer right now before I...
Oh my goodness me.
Here we go.
If you like the Alpine livery and you think that it is good, my comments are not for you. And maybe they are. I'm not here to try and change your minds. I would advise you just skip. Skip for a little bit. You don't want to hear what's about to come. I hate this livery. And I mean, if I had to pick a least favourite of the whole group, I would pick this one. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to be different.
You're about to be the only person on the podcast, Lucy.
Woo! That's fine. I have several issues with this livery. They have this gorgeous, shiny, metallic blue. Do we all love the shiny, metallic blue?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So why aren't they utilising it better? Every Alpine in the last few years has had this beautiful nose. Like the whole the nose is like the main feature of the car. You know, it's what you're drawn to. And it's beautiful, shiny, metallic blue. They have given it ugly matte pink this year. Ugly matte pink nose instead of beautiful blue. Like look at the year before that. Not last year's actually, but every other year, beautiful shiny blue nose. Gorgeous. Next up, if you look at last year's Alpine, they did this weird like color gradient thing. They had this really hot blue, like hot pink, hot blue thing going on, and then they had a more like aqua blue, and they had like almost squares of it fading out into a really pastel light blue. That was awesome. And why can't we see more of that? You know, we could have had like this really cool, like not a fade gradient, but like different colors all overlapping each other to make this gorgeous, rich color with two different colors. They have literally the two best colors to work with. They're not just going to be boring black, white, and red. They're not going to be boring blue. They've not got just two colors to work with, black and green. They have got 4 colors in their arsenal. Technically 5 if we add the red of Alpine's road car thing. Sorry, I'm really heated about this. I heard you guys like absolutely glazing this livery, and I'm like, am I losing my mind? Am I insane? Maybe I am, but maybe, you know, I don't know. Okay, next. I have more things to say. The shade, someone mentioned the shade of pink is different. It's worse. They have made the pink worse. I don't
Really?
know. Yes, it looks like a ugly, slightly put in the laundry for too long, like stained by tea kind of pink. When before they had this gorgeous like pink that reminded me of candy floss and clouds. And the worst thing of all of it, the absolute worst bit of everything, Actually, no, there's many more things I could say that's bad. The halo being ugly pink while the rest of the car is blue. Like, why have they got a big slab of blue and then pink on the front? Like, they've not even combined the two colours nicely. They've literally just gone blue, pink, and then they've slapped more pink there. Yeah, pink will please the fans. But the worst thing of everything is the BWT logo on the side. Why is there no white outline? Previous years, beautiful white outline to separate the slightly clashing colours of the blue and pink. They've not done it. It's jarring, it's ugly, and I hate this livery. It is getting a 1 out of 10 for me.
Whoa, my goodness
Goodness
me.
me.
So
Well-
we've had the highest and the lowest score of the show on this one livery. Wow.
I'm sorry.
That's something. I tell you what, at least it shows that we're not collaborating on our opinions or anything. We haven't spoken about this beforehand.
I was surprised that people weren't agreeing with me. Because, like, it's really fun because at the watch party, I was with Dave Nelson. Dave Nelson didn't like it either.
Interesting.
I'm not alone, okay?
Maybe the
But-
opinions shared by the people who were in attendance at the event differ to those that weren't.
Possibly.
But also it shows that we can respect each other's opinions, even when they're
I don't
wrong.
know. I would say
Yes.
I was slightly disrespectful in how I,
It's
No,
okay.
I still respected your guys' opinions. I just
No, that's
respect the
valid.
fact that they're wrong, you know?
Perhaps the world can learn something about the mutual respect of opinions showcased on the Motorsport Recently Show. There you go. Okay, let's move on to our next team, and we're of course going to talk about Aston Martin next. I know I've been hogging the first position to talk about each livery for the last few, and I'm sorry, I'm going to continue that trend for a little longer. So I think this year's Aston Martin, obviously, virtually the entire time that Aston Martin has been in Formula One, there has usually been a sports car program that's running in tandem. Now, for most of those years, it's been the GT program in the FIA World Endurance Championship, and in other sports car racing series as well. But this year, this is the first time that we've sort of seen it run in conjunction with an actual hypercar program. And I think that this is the closest that the hypercar livery and the Formula One, or the sports car livery and the Formula One livery have been together in Aston Martin's case while that's been going on in the whole time it's been going on. But to be honest with you, I think that the livery on the Valkyrie looks better than the livery on the Formula One car. So I still think it's good, but I don't think the Aston livery, much like their actual reveal, is probably not as good as it could be. So I'm gonna say, this is a really difficult one. I think I'm gonna say it's a 7.1 out of 10 for me to start us off with Aston Martin. Does anyone have anything different to say about that?
Chris has got his finger up.
Go on.
They're the same picture. 2 out of 10.
Okay.
2 out of 10. Really? Because I think
It's the same livery as last year.
Is it? I don't think it is. I think it's a little bit different.
It
Maybe.
just-
I could be wrong.
It just feels the same as it was. Like, there's no imagination to it. Like, it just feels very corporate. And, like,
Okay, so we've basically all just frantically searched up the livery to find out, right?
Well, I was looking at last year's livery, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've just done the exact same. There are some differences. Most notably, the Aramco on the side is now with a black background rather than a green, as it previously was. It does look different to me. Is now a good time for me to share my thoughts?
Well, we should probably hear a score from Chris
I think
first.
he said 2 out of 10.
Oh, yes, it's
it
2
just,
out of 10. Sorry,
it just
sorry.
feels very corporate to me.
Very, very corporate.
Very
salesy.
cold, very corporate. Very...
I'm gonna
Not
go
good.
the opposite way. It does feel a bit cold. It feels corporate, but I think that's a good thing. It's not necessarily. So we saw at the Aston Martin launch, they had this very James Bond kind of theme going on. You know, they had. I'm so sorry, I forgot the name of the singer, but that wonderful singer came out and she was singing this beautiful song. I think there were violins involved. The whole thing was very rich, very exquisite, very classy. And I think that is exactly what Aston Martin do. They deliver luxury. And I think they've absolutely nailed the assignment with this livery. Everything about this just gives, like... if previous Aston Martin liveries have been like the young adult kind of rich, just going out for the day, kind of going out shopping, this is the slightly older version of that, with a glass of champagne in hand, sitting back in
can
my
see that.
garden. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like an older, classier version of the same livery. And it fits their vibe. The only thing I don't like about it is that little bit of white on the top. I think it's a bit jarring and would have been nicer in black.
What is
Other
the
than that,
sponsor on that?
I don't know. I can't even read it. But yeah, I'm really happy with this livery. I'm going to hit them with the... I don't even know if it's my favourite, but it's really up there. So having just looked at the Alpine livery and now looking at this, I may be slightly skewed, but I'm going to give this a 8.4 out of 10 to slightly balance out Jack's score there.
So 8.4 out of 10. I was trying to, whilst you were talking about the sort of older, classier version, I was trying to think of a James Bond comparison to draw.
Is it okay for me to change my score?
Yeah.
Is it okay for me to change my score?
Am I changing minds?
Having heard Lucy's side, I'm gonna raise it up to about a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Let's go.
So we're saying 6 out of 10. So Chris changes his score.
Yeah.
I'm really messing up my calculator at the moment. So Chris says 6. Lucy said 8.4.
Yeah.
And then I said 7.1. And then I'm going to finish my James Bond point. So I was going to say, if you think that this is the older, classier version of Aston Martin liveries, I would say then it's like comparing, if Timothy Dalton's Bond was the older liveries, then Pierce Brosnan's Bond is the current livery. I don't know why that makes... Well, no, I like both of those Bonds, but I feel like Pierce... Do you know what? This isn't a James Bond podcast. Let's just get back to...
I understand
back to race. I don't know where I was going with this, right, Caitlin?
Connery was best Bond, but
sense
fine.
Back to this conversation.
Okay. Well, Lucy, I think you've just been bribed by the cupcakes, but I do see your point about it looks like an Aston Martin. It looks classy. It looks like British luxury and all of that. Jack, I know you don't want WC spoilers, and that's okay. I will just say, thank goodness this car doesn't have any doors. Jack's blocking his ears.
I want to watch the Qatar race. That's why we're not talking about it this week.
It's okay. Well, you can take your fingers out your ears now.
You're safe.
Okay.
That's good. This is going to make this very difficult to edit, but please continue.
Fair enough. Yeah. It is a little bit uninspiring, but I will also come to the defense of teams that keep the same livery year on year. I don't like it when people come out in the livery review season and they're like, oh, it's just the same as last year, that sucks. Because, like, liveries are supposed to be the team's identity, right? They're supposed to show what car you're looking at. So I actually quite like it when a team keeps its identity year on year, and sometimes that does mean keeping the same livery. They've made some changes to it. I don't think they're necessarily good changes. I think there's a little more black on it, and I'm a little more traumatized after the last couple of years that we're going to see all the cars become black anyway. Yeah, I actually quite like the little white silvery bit on the top, though. I think it breaks up the rest of the livery. I'm gonna say 7.
And that brings us to... So, Chris said 6. Lucy said 8.4.
I said 6 or 7. I'm leaning towards 7.
This can't be like your predictions. You have to pick one. It's one number.
7.
It's not how this works. You're going with 7.
I just want to say I'm so impressed. I don't share my opinions aiming to change minds here, but thank you, Chris, for hearing me out there. That was fantastic.
So 7 plus 8.4. No, I've messed that up. Hang on. Oh, goodness me. All right, 7 plus 8.4 plus Caitlin's 7 plus my 7.1. Final answers. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
you didn't see about the uh, WC preview thing, Lucy, but basically we were doing our predictions for the World Endurance Championship, and Chris predicted like half the grid. I mean,
He
one of
also
them
did
will
it
be
at
right.
Daytona too. He did it. You get one prediction, as in the same way you get one number. Right. Okay. That brings us to a total score for Aston Martin of 29.5 out of 40, which actually is the highest score so far, which I wasn't actually
Wow.
surprised. I'm quite surprised about. Okay. Moving on. Let's move on to Mercedes. I've gone first a number of times. Caitlin, do you want to go going first again?
Yeah, some people have said that it's the same livery as last year's Mercedes, but it's very clearly not. They've changed the whole shape of it. I think my favourite part of this livery is probably the silvery airbox. I think that's a lovely colour. I think it looks good. I think my least favourite part is all of the black, especially on the nose cone and the front wing. Obviously, Mercedes, the last few years have had a bit of an identity flip flop between kind of being the silver arrows and being more black in color. Um, I think they've blended the two quite nicely, but I don't know. It's a bit of a take it or leave it livery for me. Um, it looks it's a lot like the Aston Martin in that it looks good, but it's uninspiring. I'm going to once again say 7.
Caitlin starts off with a solid 7 for Mercedes-Benz. Chris has got his finger up. What have you got to say?
This one I actually like. This has got this is very reminiscent of the 98 and 99 McLarens with the West Tobacco sponsorship. One thing I would change, though, I would have on the nose, right at the edge, like right at the end of the nose, I'd have, instead of black, I'd have like a little red streak. But other than that, this is probably going to be very unpopular, but it's a 9 for me.
A 9 out of 10 for Mercedes. Lucy, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very similar to what Caitlin said here, almost completely identical comments, so I won't add too much. Something does definitely feel off about this livery. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it is. Feels like either something's missing, or maybe it's just that there's a bit too much black. I do wish we saw a little bit more emphasis on the silver. But yeah, my favourite thing about this is, same as Caitlin, the silver kind of, is it the airbox, I think it's called?
Yeah.
I think the red Ineos thing kind of took me out of it before and was my least favourite part of the livery, so the fact that they've taken that out has honestly improved it for me. It's pretty solid, it's pretty safe. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's unoffensive, it's there. It looks fairly visually appealing, but yeah, just something is just a little bit out of whack for me, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is.
Fair enough. So 6.5 for Mercedes from Lucy. Now I'm gonna say my opinion. So I think when Mercedes returned to Formula, essentially became the factory team that they are now in Formula One. Since then, they've kind of had two very distinct eras of livery. There was, of course, the years that they ran the effectively complete silver livery, and then they, of course, had the black liveries for a number of years as well, and slowly but surely was sort of transitioned to see the silver return. And I think this livery does really well to sort of combine those two distinctive eras to make what I think is a very effective livery. I think it's all integrated very nice. It's maybe a little bit busy, so not quite perfect, but I think this is a really solid effort for Mercedes-Benz. It's not just a copy and paste livery exactly. I think it's still distinctive enough, and I think this is going to be a 7.9 out of 10 for me. So that brings us to a combined score for Mercedes-Benz of 30.4, which we've got a new highest score.
Nice.
So there seems to be bits that really aren't making very much sense. I feel like the sort of liveries that kind of get a sort of medium to high score throughout the 4 opinions tend to score very well. But anyway,
you know what it is, Jack? Sorry, it's the ones that are the least divisive that are getting the highest scores. It's the ones that nobody hates, but also nobody quite loves. I think this shows that actually, maybe going for a safe livery isn't so bad after all.
Well, I think your opinion might change. I'd be interested to see what you say about the next team, because we're, of course, moving on to Red Bull. Do you want to start us off with this one, then?
I think I should go last on this one.
Okay.
I'm cooking something.
All right, Chris seems pretty enthusiastic. What do you think?
Yeah, this is... If you want to... Hang on, I gotta take my Red Bull out of the Xerox machine. Same livery, and as bland and uninspiring as both of their drivers. 1 out of 10.
Wow. Tell us how you really feel. 1 out of 10. Oh, goodness me. Is that the lowest score we've had so far? I think it is.
No, actually, no, it's tied with the Alpine.
Right, okay.
With
It's just,
Lucy, yeah,
it just
good luck.
doesn't, like, they've had the same livery since about 2016, I think.
Yeah.
And, like, they haven't even bothered to change anything with it. And it's just uninspiring. And I'm not just saying that because, I think Max is as appealing as wallpaper paste. But, I just don't like the Red Bull livery, and it's just very low effort. And
Okay.
And yet, ironically, I like the V-carb one.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Lucy,
Lucy.
what are your thoughts? Oh, Lucy, your mic's off.
You're muted.
Sorry.
No problem, you're good.
I have a lot of thoughts. Honestly, I think Red Bull is the perfect example of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or, yeah, that's the phrase. Yeah, I really like that Red Bull are consistent. I think, it's the one bit of stability in my life that I've ever had.
Oh,
As Chris said, they've barely made the effort to change anything. Yeah, he's right. But again, I'm gonna say yeah, he's right, and I like that about it because it's just like how F1 works. From one year to the next, the car doesn't change all that much. Maybe an extra air duct or a little bit of side pod adjustment. But the cars from one year to another do look very similar to each other, and I think Red Bull reflects that. But then when you line them up, have you guys seen that room in the Red Bull factory that's got like all the cars all lined up?
yeah.
Incredible room. But if you look at all of those cars as it goes through, you'll see how the changes are small, but they add up, and then from 1 year to 4 years later to 5 years after that, you'll see the massive changes bit by bit, like how the team's evolved and grown up in an organic way, the same way that I might look at myself a year earlier on that day, like it's my birthday. If it was my birthday, I would look at myself from my birthday last year and I'd think, oh, I look the exact same. But then if you looked at me 3 years ago on my birthday, I'd still think I looked the same year on year, but actually I have changed overall. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I feel
very
So
much.
you
I
like
feel
consistency, is the
it's
point.
a very consistent, organic, natural, and real way of evolving in small steps, and I think that's exactly what Red Bull do. Yeah, I like it, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, because I really...
7 out of 10.
I want to challenge Chris and say, what would you have wanted to see? What would you have wanted them to do to make you happy? Like,
I would have wanted like some of the testing liveries, because they actually are much better than, like, the testing liveries were actually much better than what we keep getting. Red Bull has this thing where they like to tease like a different livery in testing, which is actually much better than what we see.
Yeah.
And
then I
then
think
we
that
wind
makes
up
it-
getting like this one that's like I said, as appealing as wallpaper paste. And Like it's just they need to act like they need to actually put effort. They because right now Red Bull seems to be seeming like very cold and corporate, and almost like they want to know that yes, they're the team that are they're the team that it's expected that they're on the top step at the podium. Red Bull does have the capability to make a good livery. They do. I remember, because I've been a fan since 1996. I remember the Sauber. I remember the supercars liveries with Red Bull on it, the Commodores. I remember the NASCAR teams, like Team Red Bull. And I also love the ones they're running this weekend at COTA in the Cup Series with Connor Zilic and Shane Van Gisbergen. I love those. But Red Bull just doesn't try with their Formula One program. And it's just, they need to actually listen, they need to not be as cold. Because there's an arrogance to it, almost. And it's just bland and uninspiring. I stand by my 1.
Yeah,
So
that's fair enough. I'm not trying to change your mind. I was just curious on what made you feel that way.
So we've got 1 and we've got 7 so far. I'm going to go next. So I think, really, peak Red Bull Formula One liveries were 2009 to 2000 and
Here.
sort of 14. It went a bit wrong in 15, and then 16 is sort of what we got with now. I don't think any of the Red Bull liveries really for the last 10 or so years have matched what it was sort of during the Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel era liveries, and I think it'd be great, especially when you look at what Alpine's done. I feel like what they've done, you can almost imagine the same sort of metallic philosophies applied to, if you were to modernize those old Red Bull liveries on the new car. So, look, I think if you're a graphic designer at Red Bull, you really have the easiest job in the world because you don't have to do anything year on year.
Yeah, you can basically design your car while asleep.
Yeah, so I think it's 6.7. I mean, it's fine. It's not great. It's a bit samey, and it's not really as good as it maybe once was, but it's consistent at least. They've got brand identity, so there you go. We're getting on a little bit. So, Caitlin, would you like to rattle off your Red Bull opinion?
Okay, so I am disappointed in what Lucy said because I totally agree with it, and it's what I've been cooking this whole time. Oops.
I'm so sorry.
Accidentally closed my page. I just threw my mouse off the. Everything's going wrong.
She's pulled a Toto Wolf.
But laptops have been thrown.
The headphones are next.
Right.
Have you seen my headphone? Look how wonky
they look like
is.
Toto Wolf's already had a go at those already.
Yeah. Okay, no. So the reason I wanted to go last is because I knew you were all going to complain about how it's the same year on year and but this is what I was alluding to earlier. That's a good thing, especially when it comes to Red Bull, because they do have this identity, and I respect them for sticking with this identity for so long. The reason that Red Bull doesn't need to change their livery is just because it's the best. I'm sorry, but the Red Bull livery is iconic, and I've always respected it. I always think it looks menacing. It looks dark. It looks like, the dark horse of the grid. They look like the bad guys, and I'm saying that as someone who isn't a Red Bull fan. Like, I don't like how toxic the team appears to be from time to time. I like the fact they look like the bad guys when they're on track. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to probably deliver the punch of the show and say 10 out of 10.
What? Oh my god!
We've had a 1 and a 10 for the same livery.
24.7 is the final Red Bull score. There you go, 24.7.
I'm also going to point out really quickly that the car itself, it's not just the livery that looks very similar to last year. The car itself, from a technical point of view, is very similar to last year, and I'm very interested to see what Red Bull's cooking, because that could mean that all of their work has gone into stuff that's under the bodywork, under the suspension, under the aerodynamics, and I'm really interested to see what their plan actually is here, whether they're just like banking on 2026 and they're going to settle for 4th in the championship this year, or whether they know exactly what they're doing. We'll wait and see.
Caitlin, a virtual high five for you. We may have disagreed on the Alpines, but we could bond over Red Bull.
Right, okay, so we're going to move on to Ferrari now. I can start us off if we like. Sterling Moss once famously asked for a blue Ferrari, and that might have worked. However, on this year's new car, there's not enough blue, and it's not been integrated very nicely either. I think really what they should have done is they should have conceded and had a white HP logo, but instead we've got this really odd red, white and blue combo. I love Ferrari. This livery, however, is not it, and I think that's just a 6, really. That's my score.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll follow on from that if you don't mind.
Yeah, go on.
Very, very similar comments, I think. Ferrari have definitely done stronger. I think, honestly, Ferrari's best move is just splash the thing in a bright red and call it a day. It's iconic, it's red, it's Ferrari, you know? It goes back to that quote about colouring the car red and it's Ferrari, blah, blah, blah. This is just, the shade doesn't quite give Ferrari to me in F1. It feels like a bit darker than we previously have. I'm okay with the white strip at the back, I just don't like the HP on it. I've seen some Leclerc fans, especially referring to it as the HP Circle of Doom or something, and I'm definitely seeing it because it really just is jarring. So yeah, I'll give this a 3.5 out of 10. It would have got a 4, but there's also a HP on the Halo, and that one's just even worse than the others. So yeah, 3.5 out of 10. Sorry, Ferrari. It's Jack, your T-shirt summarizes my feelings on that livery. Really, they've tried to be the prancing horse. They are in fact looking like a donkey.
Oh, fantastic! Oh my gosh, I think that's gonna go in the intro. All right, okay.
Oh no.
Lucy's been dropping some excellent sound bites. I plan to put like a little intro at the start of these episodes from now on, and Lucy's done very well on that front. Okay, so 3.5 out of 10 from Lucy. Chris or Caitlin, which one of you wants to go first?
Chris, you had your hands up just now.
Oh no, I was gonna see what you said, and then I'll.
Okay. Yeah, so in terms of Ferrari, a lot of people have pointed out how much white there is on it this year. I'm not as much of a fan of it as... I mean, I don't think many people are a fan of it, to be honest. I think it was necessary. I think they've done the best of a bad job. See, the problem is, blue, as in the HP logo, clashes very badly with red. And I don't know why Hewlett-Packard don't just let them use like a black version of their livery or a yellow version of their logo. Sorry, but they seem to insist on using the blue version, and as a result, they kind of have to give it a white background, and that's why you have this awkward stripe on the side of the car or whatever. I do think they've done the best of a bad job. I still think it looks like a Ferrari. Not my favourite Ferrari of all time, but, you know, as Daniel Bruhl from Rush would say, it's a Ferrari. I've just realised that wasn't one of Daniel Bruhl's lines, but whatever. It's a Ferrari.
But we know who you're talking about, yes.
I'm gonna say 7.
You can't say the other part of that line because I'm not putting censorship in. So you're saying 7 out of 10, and Chris, bring this one home, and don't get us sued, and don't make me censor anything.
I'm just gonna say this. I love it.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Really? That's
like,
not what I was expecting.
I love the darker... I actually like the darker red. I know it's an unpopular opinion. And I think that the 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 white diagonal stripe and the HP logo actually does work, if you can believe it. Like, I think it works. Like, it's a beautiful livery, and like, I think, and having seen it in the light as well, like, they nailed it. They nailed it. I'm gonna put 9.
9. Wow. Okay,
I'm gonna give it a 9.
I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't expecting that, and that actually brings the Ferrari score to a 25.5 out of 40. Now, my comment for the last team on the list is quite easy, actually. It's McLaren have given us not very much for this year. They've gone with effectively. I mean, again, they've sort of applied the Red Bull philosophy. It's an easy time to be a graphic designer at McLaren at the moment. It's basically a copy-paste job from last year. If you look back to sort of 2019 era McLarens, the cars were slow, but the liveries were good. The cars are now fast, and the livery is not good. I respect the brand identity that they've generated with the Papaya, but I don't think it really works. It's fine. It's not particularly effective. I think this is just it's a 5.5 out of 10 for me.
I'm gonna go next.
Yeah, go on.
With a question for you, Jack.
Yes.
Is it painted in the correct shade of orange?
Oh my goodness! There we go. That's a reference. We're throwing it right back to the era of the old show with that one. Far out.
Yeah.
Someone pull up a hex code on that one.
Speaking of hex code, I don't even know what the sponsor on the side pod is.
I think it's OKX.
OKX.
They've been with them for a while though. That logo's been on there.
I will say, I do actually like the Google Chrome logo wheel covers.
Yes, that is a redeeming quality of this livery, I have to say.
But yeah, I'm gonna give it a solid 6 out of 10 because it still looks decent, but it's just not as inspiring as, say, like an Alpine or a Mercedes. Like, it's just there. I will say, I'm full disclosure, I do hope they do well this year.
Do you mind if I go next?
Yep, go on.
Yeah, I can go next because I can tell you about what OKX is. That's just a nickname for a former partner who's just a bit mid. That's what that is. Yeah. Okay, so McLaren Mercedes, it is the same as last year. I've appreciated that on the Red Bull and the Aston Martin. I'm afraid I
just
don't.
Got your joke, Caitlin.
Yeah, I just got it.
That took me a second.
It took you that long?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see my brain lagging. I was
Like, once I looked across at Lucy on the riverside, and I saw that, like, because at that moment it clicked for me as well.
a smile forming on my face. I was like,
Wait a minute. You're gonna have to explain it to me.
It's an OKX.
Yeah, it's a former
Like that,
partner
an
who's
X
just a
that
bit
was
mid.
okay.
Oh,
I was worried I was lagging there because you guys just seemed to react to it like 10 seconds late.
And also,
You're just
first of
operating on a different plane to us.
first of all, it's okay Twitter.
Oh my goodness me! Right, okay, yes, right, Caitlin.
Okay.
Please bring this home. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So, unlike with Red Bull and Aston Martin, I don't really appreciate McLaren staying the same. I'm afraid. It almost seems to break tradition in a way to have them stay the same. McLaren's a team you expect to change year on year. I will say I've never been a fan of the chrome wheel rims or the I don't know. I always think the McLaren livery looks a little bit kind of. It's hard for me to put into words, but it doesn't look like an adult designed it. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry, McLaren designers, but that's just my personal opinion. Cluttered. That's the word I'm looking for. It's cluttered. Chris, you always like to quote this thing about the late 1990s Williams, where Murray Walker said it looked as if someone had got a paint cannon and loaded it with sponsors and just fired it at the car. I think the McLaren kind of looks like that, and I'm going to give it a 4.5.
4.5 out of 10. Right, here we go.
So what you're saying is that the Ferrari looks so nice and neat and clean. The McLaren looks as though they've loaded a lot of names and logos into a can and then fired it at the car.
And there's the Murray
Just
Walker
love
quote.
that
Very good.
impression. Okay, Last Lap Lucy is going to bring the last livery reveal to us, or last livery review to us
I see
for
what
this
you did there.
podcast. There
I'm
we go.
so pleased that you've come to me last, because I was doing my Duolingo for the entirety of.
Oh, what
the
language are you
last two
learning?
French.
Oh, French.
I've got 3 minutes to do my Duolingo. I'm going to mute myself.
I need to actually bone up on my French because I'm going to Montreal
Oh, lovely.
Oh, yeah.
in June.
I need to show
Yeah.
you guys my streak, actually. Boom! 1,608.
That's
good.
incredible. Mine is 275. Well done,
Let's
Lucy.
go.
Anyway, carry on.
Go,
My
Caitlin,
dad's
go.
got like a 7-year Duolingo streak. He's been doing
Yes.
Spanish for a while.
Jeez.
Anyway, yeah.
Mine's
Anyway,
probably
sorry.
close to that.
Yes.
Anyway, yes. First thoughts on the McLaren. It kind of looks like a cigarette packet, but like an older one. I don't know how to explain that. It just does.
I can
I don't
see
know.
that.
It just makes it gives cigarette, and I don't really like that. And then the big velo word being next to it as well also kind of just makes me think of smoking. And I don't know. It just feels a bit detached from what McLaren's general brand identity is. I think they try and go for like the fun, family-friendly kind of vibe, and I think smoking gives more of an adult kind of vibe. I don't know if that makes sense. Like adults only, I should say. Yeah, I think McLaren have a really gorgeous papaya colour that they can work with, and I wish they'd showed it off a little bit more, Even just an extra orange stripe to almost, I don't know how to explain it, like a double stripe to add a bit more papaya kind of going on over the black. It just feels like a bit of a lazy livery. My favourite McLaren livery, personally, was the 2019 McLaren with the triangles. I think it was a really fun and cool livery, and honestly I wish McLaren would bring back the blue. I think it's a bit of fun. It was a nice extra colour for them to use, and bring back the blue papaya era, because it was lovely. It was a vibe, and I missed that. So it's pretty uninspiring for me, and I'm going to round this out by just giving it middle of the road 5 out of 10.
All right, I've got the rankings now. I finally figured out my Google Sheets. So we're going to go from worst to best. So we said that Haas was the worst livery on the grid. That was an 18.5 out of 40. McLaren came in second last with a 21 out of 40. Williams was next. It was 22.34 for them. Followed by Red Bull, it was 24.7. Ferrari at 25.5. Sauber at 28. VCarb at 29. Alpine also at 29. Aston Martin came in at second place, but the winner on 30.4, we have said for the Motorsport Recently Show for 2025, the best livery on the Formula One grid is Mercedes. There you go.
It really was the least divisive liveries that won.
Yeah.
Maybe this is why the teams go for safe liveries year on year. But yeah, I would not have expected Mercedes to come out on top today, and good job, Brackley.
Good job to them as well. Okay, we have some miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore covering now. TM Bing. I do really want to quickly rattle them off because we've really gone over time.
Yeah.
So I'll go over the important ones. I'll do this sort of news presenter style. So Carlos Sainz Jr. has gone fastest overall at the end of 3 days of F1 testing, with Lewis Hamilton in second and Charles Leclerc in third. So very impressive result for the Williams driver. just the week before, I didn't get to watch all of this live because I was actually racing myself, but over last weekend for supercars at Sydney Motorsport Park, Cam Waters went 3 out of 3 and won all 3 races for Tickford and the Monster Energy Ford Mustang. Very exciting touring car racing. I encourage everybody to go and watch the highlights of all 3 races, with a particularly exciting finish at the end of race 2, beating out Brock Feeney to the line by 0.03 seconds.
Didn't he top like every qualifying session as well?
Yeah.
It's like a mega Grand Chelem. Cam Waters on a roll.
Amazing driving from Cam Waters. Some more Australian stories as well. 6 cars have been named for to feature at the Race of Champions next weekend in Sydney, which I'm actually going to one of the 2 days. I'm going to Friday. It runs across Friday and Saturday. Booked my tickets yesterday. So the event will feature the FC2 Rallycross car, the Supercar Light Rallycross, the KTM Crossbow Comp R, the Polaris RZR Pro R, the Toyota GR86 Cup, and the Subaru BRZ Cup.
That's a lot of cars.
I would like to quickly point out that's actually 5 cars, because the Toyota GR86 and the Subaru BRZ are actually the same car.
Oh, here we go.
You know, we should end off with some listener comments. I'll make this very quick. I did promise we'd read some off. So, Justin Kids 2082 says, in response to our LMP2 discussion last week, says, easy answer, no, LMP2 going away made the series far better. Robin Tails Fighter, regular contributor to the comment section of the show, mentioned this week that Lamborghini are using 2025 as a development year with the intention to bring that program back full time next year. And he also mentioned that Porsche Penske Motorsport will have an auto invite for Le Mans. We should probably end the show.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us, Last Lap Lucy, for this week's episode of the Motorsport Recently Show. All of the socials for everybody will be in the description below. My name has been Jack McKenzie, and joining me on the mic as usual has been the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary. Please leave your comments on YouTube and Spotify. We'd like to hear those and we'll read them out on the show next week. But aside from that, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Ta-ra.
Bye.